Welcome to another Bible study here in the book of Mark, and we're going a little bit further into Mark chapter 11, and really just a very small section today, but I want us just to really get a couple of important parts here. And maybe I could just begin by asking this question: have you ever felt like your prayers weren't being answered? Many times we may feel a little bit that way. Maybe sometimes we've struggled a little bit with the questions, does God really care, or is he really paying attention to me? And today, in this little passage here in Mark chapter 11, we have two of the key issues, really, in being sure that our prayers are getting through. And so I want to focus on them for a little bit here today. And we begin with verse number 21 tells us how Peter and the disciples came by after Jesus had pronounced the curse on the fig tree, and now the fig tree seems to be, it's dried up from the roots, and it seems to be gone as far as any kind of life. And then Jesus answered Peter. Whenever he made this observation, Jesus answered Peter and said in verse 22, "Have faith in God." And then he says that whoever of you would say to the mountain, "Be removed," if you have the faith that would be the case, and you won't doubt in your heart that it can be as you have said. And then he goes a little bit further, verse 24, "Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." And some would like to just stop right there. And, it's almost a name it and claim it idea, and whatever you want, you can just claim, and God's going to give it to you. But he also goes into verse 25. First of all, I don't think that's the correct way to pray. God is not a vending machine for us just to put in the right formula, and God will give us exactly what we ask for. But then he also gives us another key point that I want to sort of make our main focus today. But verse 25, "And when ye stand praying, forgive if ye have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. But if ye do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive your trespasses." And so it seems as though there are two issues here, and some would like to just again focus on the idea of moving mountains, and even here today you can see some of the mountains in our area. And I'm not suggesting that we should just go point to the mountains off in the distance there and say, you be removed to some other yonder spot. But instead, we do need to recognize that we do have issues in our lives that need faith, first of all. And many times we struggle with that area, and it seems as though we need to sort of have a refresher in some of these issues of faith. Can I really believe God to do what I ask? Or is this sort of just a wish list, and, I wish it would happen, I hope it happens, but I don't really truly believe God to do what I need done? So that's the one area that we need to really identify in our own lives. But then besides that, there's another word here. Yes, we must have faith, but secondly, we must also have forgiveness in our hearts. And this is one area that we don't hear a lot about, perhaps, especially when it comes to the area of having our prayers heard. But where Jesus said, "Have faith in God," just a few verses later, he says also, when you're coming to pray, you be sure that there is forgiveness in your heart before you expect God to answer your prayer. And so verse 25 tells us that. And then he also says, "If you do not forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses." And of course, it doesn't necessarily make reference to just our general praying, but it is an important reminder for us that when we sometimes think, God should just answer my prayer, anything that I say, I have faith, I believe God. But maybe there are times that, we try to have faith, we believe God, but if we are harboring something in our heart that hinders our prayers, then you can have all the faith you want to, and that doesn't mean that you're going to have your prayer answered, because there's something that is a hindrance right there in your heart. And so even today, I would urge us to start searching our hearts. If you feel like maybe it's been a while since you've had your prayers answered, or you have maybe specific prayers that you have been praying, and you are struggling a little bit as to whether God really hears you, maybe start searching your heart a little bit. Is there something in my heart that I haven't really forgiven and let go? Because as long as we hold things, grudges and various hard feelings in our heart, we can't expect God to just come through and answer any prayer that we have and meet all our needs and supply for us in miraculous ways or whatever. But we come to the place where we have to recognize, I must give up my own grudges and my own hard feelings in order for me to have my prayers heard. And I know that may be a little difficult sometimes, and I don't know what it is necessarily that you have struggled with to just give to the Lord. But the two aspects that we recognize today, first of all, we must have faith. But in order to have faith, we must also have forgiveness, because our faith is going to be lacking if our forgiveness is lacking. And they go just so hand in hand together that you and I really need to start searching our hearts. If we think we want to receive something from God, we have to also make sure that we have given God those hard things, the hard feelings, just the hurts of our lives that it's just hard to get over sometimes. But if we want our prayers to be heard, then we also have to forgive. And I know that might be so simple and so short today, and yet really those two issues are such key factors in really receiving from God what we have need of. And so I'm just going to leave it at that today. I'm going to just urge you, search out your faith, make sure that you are really truly believing God. He is the God who is omnipotent. He has all power to do everything that we need Him to do. But He does require that we give Him those areas of our lives that are hurtful, those things that we've held on to. And so faith and forgiveness have to go hand in hand. And God help us even today to have our prayers heard, because we have the faith we ought to have, and we have forgiven as we ought to do as well. So God help us today. Certainly I would say again, God be with you, but God help me. And may God help us each one to really, truly have these two key aspects to having our prayers answered. We'll plan to come back to maybe some more here even. There's a number of other verses here in chapter 11, and we'll probably come back to those later. But for today, those two key issues to kind of deal with. Our faith and forgiveness. May God help us to really be the man or woman that He wants us to be. God bless you until we meet again.